First of all, I just appreciate everybody coming today and being a part of this, and a little bit different. I've never really done this before for one specific recruit, but I thought that press conference at this time was warranted just to speak to the fact about Malik and his whole situation a little bit and just go through it. He was an extremely highly recruited young man. We're very, very excited that he became a Spartan last night, and I got the papers about 11:45 last night, so it was an eventful evening, and so we're just extremely excited for him and his family in terms of where we go from here. I think what makes him so special as a player, he has a unique ability. Obviously, he's a big guy. He goes about 6'6", 290. But his versatility to play defensive end, to play defensive tackle, his power, his speed, his athletic ability, his size, obviously, are huge characteristics. And but beyond that, you look at the intangibles. I think the guy's a doer. When we had him in camp a couple years ago, when I watched him in camp this past summer, he was a guy that had a high motor, and he understood what he wanted, and he went about it in a very clear manner and decisive manner. So we're very, very excited about him becoming a Spartan. And I think the best way to do this is for you guys to ask me questions, and then I'll go through some things as we go. But usually that's what gets quoted, so I figure that's the way we'll handle it. All right.
Two-part question, Mark. First one is you mentioned his motor. With big guys, you can oftentimes catch them taking some plays off, up big, down big, whatever. He's the same guys that just seems to go all the time. How appealing was that to you early? Well,
very, very appealing. You bring a big guy to camp, and he came to camp between his sophomore and junior year. And when he comes to camp, and you put him through the different things relative to defensive line play, he was able to keep his motor running. He's been able to sustain, I guess is what you'd say, throughout every drill. And that was impressive because sometimes big guys can't do that. So he was very light on his feet. He was extremely flexible. But you just had a feeling that he was going to be a great player, and I think that he did that his senior year. And I think the film speaks for itself a little bit, certainly a lot. And the fact that the people who were recruiting him was, he took visits to Ohio State and I believe Florida, to Alabama, Florida State, and Michigan State. So and many others are involved in this. So. As I said before, very, very excited he's become a part of this program.
Mark, how sure were you he was eventually going to stick to his commitment after things didn't happen right on signing day? And then can you just speak to sort of the bizarre scenarios around it and what that was like to go through for him and you?
Yeah, it was a long process. There's no question about that. And, I knew that the family had concerns, and they were legitimate concerns. And so what we had to do is we had to be able to work through the process until everybody felt comfortable with this. And, I think the one thing, and I wrote some notes down here because I think the one thing that you have to understand about recruiting, especially, I think, the intensity of this recruiting, the recruiting of this young man. It was, five-star guy, top player in Michigan, all the different things that go along with that, a national recruit, a lot of visits early in the process. So, people were on him just constantly, so constant that, when you send a tweet on a direct message, there were so many direct messages that he really couldn't even read them. So I think the complexity of the whole recruiting process had something to do with that. But I also think that your child, as a parent, your child, you're concerned about your child, and you want what's best for him. So you take steps to make sure that the decision that he makes is not impulsive, that decision is going to be a long-term decision, that it's not a decision that's going to be made because he likes coming up here on the weekend or something of that nature. It's something that will last. Things came up during the entire recruiting process, I guess, that created concerns, not just here but elsewhere, whether it was a concern for Malik, whether it's concern for his mother, whether it's concern for his father. Very complex issue as you try and all get on the same page as you move through the process. And I think all those concerns were legitimate. And it takes time to work towards a solution or a resolution in all the different things that we went through. So I thought it was very important that everybody be on the same page when we make this decision or when they made the decision. So what I tried to do on my end was sort of just be still. We really didn't talk to Malik much, You're allowed to call a young man once a week. We didn't do that. There wasn't that communication. I felt pretty firm that he had a commitment in this direction, but everybody, again, had to be on the same page, and I think that it took time. They didn't want it to be impulsive. I've always said many, many times, and I think I've said it in here, when you're unsure of some things, you try and slow the game down. And I think that's what the family did. They tried to slow it down, make sure that this is what he wanted, and tested him at every turn in that area, because this is a big, big decision. They finally came to that conclusion. I think we did a good job at both parties. All parties involved did a good job keeping the lines of communication open as we moved through the process. And I think ultimately, that is what created this, resolution and this final decision. And again, I'm just very, very excited about it.
So, Mark, did you have an idea that late last night this might happen, or was it sort of like, oh, hey, it's 15 minutes to the deadline and this comes in? I mean, you know what I mean? Was it a kind of an ongoing discussion that might happen? And also, have you ever been part of something like this?
No, I've never been, part of this, because now I've been involved in these type of things on signing day, but never this far into the process. But again, I think this was a unique situation a little bit. We practiced yesterday, so I came off the practice field and got a text, so I knew something may happen. And then, there was just dialogue throughout the evening in terms of just dialogue, texting, and things of that nature, just to try and, again, just to make sure that there was communication and everybody felt good about the process and what was going to occur. I talked to Malik this morning. He's thrilled, ecstatic about everything, and I think the thing that we need to understand is that first and foremost, and when he comes here, he's a student first, and that was primary in his parents' concerns, that he's going to be a student first. And secondly, that he was going to get a legitimate degree and work towards that degree, and that we're going to hold him accountable for that. And then third, that he was going to be a football player and help us win championships, and continue to get better and be able to fulfill all the dreams that he and his family have in that endeavor as well. But I think my feeling is, as you move through this, when I look at how did these things happen, why did they happen, it's the same thing that I have written on the board for all of our players or on a shield. There's got to be a commitment. There certainly was a commitment that took place last night, but there's got to be a commitment. Malik made that commitment on signing day. We worked towards getting resolution based on that fact. There's got to be a commitment by the university as well. And now there has to be a commitment from myself, our coaching staff, towards Malik and his family as we move through the process too, to try and maintain those lines of communication and make sure that we do what we said, what I just indicated to you were our goals. Got to be able to communicate when there's a problem. You've got to be able to continue to communicate, and the lines of communication stayed open throughout the entire process, and I think I give credit to his mother for doing that, because that's not easy to do, because she had some legitimate concerns in this direction. But the lines of communication stayed open, whether it was from my point of view, her point of view, our coaches, Malik, his high school coaches, all the people that were involved in his life, because there are many, many other people that were involved in this process. And then finally, there's the trust factor. And, trust is a very fragile thing. It can be broken very easily, but can always work hard to reaffirm that trust as we move through the process. But, I think Malik trusts us as individuals. I trusted Malik in terms that this is what he wanted to do. And, again, we work towards a resolution. But we will do the very, very best we can to fulfill everything that we've recruited him on. That Michigan State is a championship-type program with a tremendous academic reputation, that we will win here with chemistry, and we will hold our players accountable morally as well.
Mark, two questions, one at a time. Because we're all aware of the mother's resistance in this, did you have to sell her? Do you still have to sell her? I mean, knowing you sound like the kind of guy that'd say, Malik, let's not do this until Mom is convinced. Was there any of that going on, or do you have to win her over still?
I just want to make sure that when we go through the process, that if I make a mistake, that I try and make up for that mistake, that if this university has a problem, we try and address that problem with people, because there's no perfect place out there for anybody. and at the same time that we address the concerns of a parent. I don't know if I'm answering the question, because I can't remember what the question was.
Well, just
But-
if you had to work on his mother to get her on board.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. But I think she had legitimate concerns because she knows her child. And, it's tough. It is extremely tough. I put myself in that situation, ask ourselves, how do we handle our children? How do you handle your children? And you know your child, and you want to make sure that he's not making an impulsive decision. And if you feel like he is, then there's resistance. And, I just think she went through the process.
The other
And I'm
part
happy
is,
that it's resolved.
I'm fascinated over the attention this has gotten over a high school kid. And go back to your first statement. This isn't like you to call a press conference to announce a commitment. What makes this so different?
Well, first of all, I've never been in a situation where a national recruit has signed this late. I have not. I know it's happened before. This is not a unique situation. This has happened before. Young players wait until later on after the signing day to make decisions. So that's what makes it unusual. I knew that there'd be a lot of questions. I wanted to make sure that we were forthcoming in anything and that everybody had their questions answered. And that's the whole reason for having a press conference here. I just want to make sure that when we leave here that you've had the opportunity to talk about it. And I also think it's warranted. I just think there is a lot of I guess it's newsworthy. Okay, so.
Mark, you mentioned not being through something specifically like this, though, and how did you choose to handle it the way you did in terms of, and did you know that's the way you wanted to in terms of leaving him alone and not reaching out at every possible opportunity and whatnot?
I just wanted to try and make sure that at the end of it all, I really just didn't want to be, I didn't want there to be such a problem created that it was all about us. There needed to be another dynamic there. Malik had to want to come here badly, and that was in existence. That was there. So because of that, I just sort of stood still, and every time I had an opportunity to talk to him, which was really about once a month since then, I asked him if he was sure this is what he would want to do. Because I didn't want to push him and pull on him that this was the only thing that he had to do. I wanted it to be his decision. And, he made a man's decision. And, he continued to try and talk to his family about this. And eventually his family all got on board. And they made the decision, what was, in their mind, what was best for Malik. And their decision was, as a family, for him to come to Michigan State. So, difficult decision to reach as you move through the process, but again, there's a lot of people involved in this, and I think there was a lot of work done on the part of the family and on the part of the people who counsel her families in terms of exactly what's the best thing for him, whether that be here or someplace else. I just think it was an involved process.
In any situation, there's a lot of water under the bridge. How do you approach now, just based on public comments that some of the family had made, the relationship with Coach Burton coaching them? I mean, how do you do that to make sure there's not concern there?
I've learned one thing as being a coach, or maybe hopefully a man. You move on. You move on. Things can always get worse, or they can get better. They're never going to stay the same. You're going to improve relationships, or relationships are going to go south a little bit. Doesn't mean you're going to go all the way south, but you have to work on building relationships, and that's trust. And you have to work on those three aspects that I talked about: commitment, communication, and trust. You have to be able to work on those things every day, and we have to earn that. Some of it, quite honestly, we have to earn back. But, to be quite honest with you, I believe her family, I believe Malik's family and his mother and his father are righteous people. I believe they have a strong faith. I believe they prayed about this, and I prayed about this as well, how to handle it. And I just think that through prayer, we came to a resolution. That's what I feel. It's pretty simple.
Coach,
But there is absolutely, and people are thrilled here. There is no problem in terms of how Malik McDowell is going to be handled here. And as I said earlier, I'm sorry, Mike, as I said earlier, he's earned this press conference. He has earned this opportunity to talk about him as a single person because of the perseverance that has existed in this process and because of the length of the process and the questions surrounding it. And I think everybody is just want to get out in front of it and make it right.
Coach, I was going to ask you about the ripple effect. We talk about the ripple effect of victories on the field. Certainly recruiting is a big game of perception, and when these recruitments have dragged out in past years, we've seen the marquee programs, the big name programs. Is this a sign that Michigan State is taking its place among the elite in recruiting as well as on the football field?
Well, I hope so. You know, we've got a lot of players drafted every year. We've had guys drafted. We've won 42 games in the last 4 years. You know, we ended up number 3 in the country, I guess, or whatever. I guess that's what it was. So we've taken big steps, and I think we're a place that, you know, we've sort of nationally recruited as of late. You know, especially in what I would call I don't know about it being local, but in the Midwest, especially in the Midwest, and only because of the acceleration of the recruiting process, for the most part, and the number of commitments that you have prior to even the season beginning. Because other than that, you know, we can recruit nationally, except that, you know, sometimes we're filled up. But I do think it's a big step. I think, you know, this will pay dividends down the road, not just in terms of his play on the field, but in terms of the recruiting that goes on along with it, recruiting other players.
Mark, apologize, but going backwards here a little bit. On National Signing Day, just when did it become clear to you that this might not be coming in today? Just what was that day like, keeping up with the McDowell situation? And then did you have any indication then that it could take this long to get something done?
I did know who he would commit to on that day. I did not know that. So obviously we were thrilled when that happened. But then as the day wore on, you know, there were some questions, and you know, initially it was let's try and get things resolved as quick as possible. But you know, as you found out more and more, you know, you knew it was going to just take time, and you know, we just tried to be patient and basically, as I said earlier, try to not rock the boat too much and just be still and let the process take place. And you know, I think this is the best place for Malik McDowell. I sincerely think that. But I wanted him to find the best place for him too. So I didn't want it to be all about us. And in the end, I think that's what happened in the end. In the end, you know, things went as they go. It just goes as it goes sometimes.
Can you take us behind closed doors? Was there any private celebration with the coaches? Did you slap fives? Did you open a bottle of ginger ale, or what is that?
No, actually, I laid down and tried to go to sleep, but I think I got to bed about 12:45 because all this went down last night. I finally got the facts about 11:45. Yeah. Yep.
I'll just ask, since it's here. Coach, when you talk about expanding the recruiting circles, your reputation is for finding the diamonds in the rough. Have you had to change your game, and if so, how much have you had to change your approach to recruiting with the accelerated process and with the larger area now that Michigan State can canvass?
We really haven't changed our process. We really haven't changed the direction that we go. We're going to recruit, you know, players here first and expand beyond, because I think we find out more about the people. We find out more about the individuals that we bring here. And I keep saying, you know, why do we win? Why have we won? We've won because of chemistry. We got some good players. We got guys that play hard, but they play hard for each other. And we've won here because of chemistry. And that chemistry exists because of the people that are here. The coaches, you know, the managers, the trainers, the equipment people, our players. Just anybody that touches this program, I think, impacts young people. And that's what I've asked them to do, and that's what they've done. And I think our seniors have always done a great job in terms of motivating the younger players and being there for them. So we're on the players. You know, I think what's happened is the players we get on in the spring, we have a pretty good chance of getting. That's what's happened. We're not finding these guys at the end. If we identify a guy, say he's a player, I don't really care who recruits him. In this case, everybody recruited Malik. But in other cases, maybe a guy was not quite as recruited, like Shalik Calhoun, and then he's the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten Conference. And an All-American and all that. So, you earn what you get as you move forward. Nothing stays the same. As I said, you're constantly moving forward. And we got to all do that. We got to critique who we are and what we do and try and get better, whether that's relationships, whether that's hard work, whether that's football, whether that's school. We just keep trying to get better.
Mark, going all the way back to last summer, there was a perception, rightly or wrongly, that Michigan State might not have been the leader for Malik. Did you ever get that idea? Did you get an idea that there was some catching up to do? Yes or whether or not, did you get an idea that Michigan State was really connecting with him? He said he was comfortable with Michigan State. When did you feel he was becoming comfortable with Michigan State? And did you feel you had some catching up to do or anything like that?
Yeah, it's difficult to get a hold of different people in this recruiting process, especially because everybody's calling once a week and that type of thing. So, really probably towards November or early December, I started to feel like Malik was very receptive to coming here, and then they made the decision as a family to cancel one visit and insert Michigan State in the visit opportunity, and so that to me was a positive. And then we just tried to move forward, week by week. Sometimes we move forward, sometimes we move back, but eventually, like I said, we got to this resolution in this process, and I think that's the best way to determine it.
Mark, you talked on signing day when you talked about all your signees about what your expectations were. Is this a young man you think who could compete for playing time in the fall?
Yeah, I think Malik will be on the field for us. I just think he's too big and strong, fast. He can play too many. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can be a pass rush guy. He can play in goal line situations and short yardage situations. I think he's going to be on the field based on what I've seen from him in camps and his raw physical ability. And I think he's a smart player, and I think he's extremely coachable. And he's got a lot of want to. He wants to please, and that's a part of it too. Now, can he stay healthy in camp? Can he learn the defense? Those are the things that you don't really know until he gets here. But I would say from a physical standpoint, he's going to get on the field. Most definitely.
Coach, you addressed this on signing day. Obviously, Malik wasn't part of that discussion at that time because of the NCAA rules. But now stepping back and looking at this defensive line class collectively, have you ever recruited a class that compares to this as far as defensive linemen in one signing class?
This is an excellent signing class of defensive linemen. I would say, a couple years ago when Shalik and now LT's a defensive lineman and Joel Heath and some of those guys were coming, I think it was a good class. But I think this class probably supersedes that in terms of raw numbers and ability. I think we have two defensive ends coming in that are sort of wiry guys like Demetrius Cooper. We got a big guy coming in Malik that can be dominant and hold the point and is active. We've got defensive tackles coming in. Enoch Smith can play defensive end a little bit too, or be an inside player, extremely powerful. You got Beadle coming in, who's a very athletic guy, and Malik coming in. We got Craig Evans, who's a defensive lineman, who's a big, powerful guy, an inside player, nose tackle, or a 3 technique, but a guy that can move. So I think it's an excellent class. And, when you look at our football team, our defensive tackle position is a position that is needed in our defensive end position. We only recruited 1 last year. So it was a position of need. So I think we addressed our needs there, and I think these guys will all have an opportunity. They're going to have an opportunity to play, more than just Malik. I just think our guys are going to – now they're going to have to learn, and there's going to be some experience factors here. There's be some lessons learned as we move forward. But I think all of those guys are excellent football players, and I would think this is one of the better classes we've signed.
Hey, Mark, something else you didn't get a chance to talk about on signing day that you often do when you get a chance. Signing the number 1 player in Michigan, quote unquote. You've mentioned it before when it's been Golston or Burbridge or other players. How important is that? And it's something you've mentioned in the past, and I get a chance to speak to that too.
It's not a direct competition. It's only important because we deem that individual an important player, a very important player in our program. So Is he the top player in the state? That's for other people to say. I guess he is. We've gotten the top player before, and those guys have come here and have been great players for us. You know, I think LT is in that capacity. I think Burbage was. I think Golston was. I'm not positive. I know Malik probably is. Those guys, the point is that they've all come and they've all been successful as players, and they've been good people. We're calling him a player because I think he's 290 pounds, so he can go in there and play, but he is athletic enough. I've seen him on the edge and his get off and things of that nature to play end. But I think that if he hits the magic 300 number, I don't know. We'll figure that out. Those are good problems. I think he has the athletic ability to be extremely versatile. Good guys. All right, thank you so much. And again, it's very, very exciting. Malik McDowell's a Spartan. Go Green.